I'm Gretchen Rubin, and I study happiness and habits, the little things people can do as part of their everyday life in order to be happier. I mean, we all know that health is so important to happiness, but health is kind of like money. We feel the lack of it much more than we feel the benefit of it. So once you feel pretty good, or once you have enough money, you don't realize how much it contributes to your happiness. It's when you are in pain or are sick or don't have enough money that you're very aware of the important role that they play in your life. So health is important because it gives us that feeling also of vitality. And a sense of energy is tied with happiness, because a lot of times there are things that we know that if we did them, we would be happier, but we just feel too drained or too exhausted to attempt them. So you know you'd be happier if you planned a big birthday party for your sister, but you just can't face it. Or you know you should exercise regularly, but you just kind of can't get yourself organized enough to do it because you just feel so overwhelmed by life. So a sense of energy and health and vitality, they make us feel happier, and they also empower us to do other things that are also very important to building happiness. One thing I've learned from my study of habits is that there is this very large group of people who, in my framework, I call obligers, who have a hard time meeting the expectations they set for themselves, but they're great at meeting expectations that other people set for them. And so they need health trainers, coaches, anybody who's going to help them hold themselves accountable. So I heard from a woman who said, I was reading about your framework, I realized I'm an obliger. For years I've been trying to exercise on my own. I kept thinking, why am I not able to make myself a priority? Other people seem to be able to do it. But now I work out with a trainer 3 days a week at 6:30 in the morning, and it's no problem for me because I know I have to meet that other person. So a health coach is someone who can get you to change those eating habits that you've been trying to do for years, or help you to stick to that exercise, or help you to go to sleep on time. All these things that it's not that you don't know them, but for a lot of people, it's very hard to put them into practice. And having somebody who, and also a friend of mine who is a health coach, he talks about pro or peer. And he says, a lot of times people don't listen to their peers. They need a pro. And I said, well, is it important that you pay the person? And he said, it is. Sometimes we value things more when we pay for them. And a lot of times it's a feeling that it's somebody who's objective, somebody who's thought a lot about this, brings a lot to it, and also someone who's not necessarily your family member or your friend, somebody who's going to cut you slack, somebody who's going to say, come on, you committed to this, it's time for you to come through. So they put you in a different kind of frame of mind. One of the things I often write about is the difference between abstainers and moderators. So abstainers are people that when they have a temptation, they do better when they abstain totally. And moderators do better when they have something sometimes, or a little bit, or a few bites. So can they keep a bar of chocolate in their desk for a week, or do they eat it all in one day? That's an abstainer versus a moderator. So I wrote about this, and a woman wrote to me and she said, I'd always tried to be a moderator because that sounds more sensible, but I realized I'm actually an abstainer, which is what I am. I'm an abstainer. And she said, I've lost 70 pounds because I gave up flour and sugar, and it's not even hard for me. And I thought, it just shows how if someone just tells you something about yourself, or shines a new light on something about your experience, sometimes you're able to do this huge change really surprisingly effortlessly, but you kind of need to get that key to be able to understand yourself and your circumstances in a way that you can make the choices that are best for you. The more I look at happiness, the more I see, that your physical experience colors your emotional experience colors your physical experience. All these things are bound together. And also the thing about the body is that sometimes we focus on trying to change our thoughts and our minds. It's hard to change our thoughts. It's much easier to change our outward actions. And so sometimes by focusing on outward actions and the things that you can you can't control your boss, but you can control whether you go to bed on time. You can do things that will have a much larger effect on things that perhaps aren't as tangible or aren't as clearly within your control. So I think dealing with the things, your own physical habits, your own health habits, is a great place to start, because it is going to have huge consequences, and it is something that is within our power, to some degree. Not totally, but to some degree.
Just like different breeds of dogs, but they're all dogs. Most of what's in our produce section looks like a lot of variety, but genetically it's only one thing. So as I started to realize that, I was like, wait a second, what do natural humans actually eat? When I found out they eat wild foods. And when we start to look at that, we find out wild foods are far more nutritious for us, almost exclusively. There's almost no exceptions to this.